So this is it. I'm mostly done with AI coding, and in this video I want to explain to you exactly why. I think that it's important to first of all mention that the reason I got into AI coding in the first place was because first of all I found it very interesting. I found it to be a new paradigm, which I still think it is, and third, I also wanted to be able to create good content for this channel and for the students that I have. So I think that it would be dangerous from my point of view to just say I'm not going to even try to use these new tools, and instead I'm just going to ignore them without actually giving them a try. If you go and watch the videos that I've posted in the past, I went from not liking AI coding at all, then I started playing around with it, and I ended up now back more or less in the same spot as I was previously. And when I first started playing around with it, I saw a lot of issues that started popping up, but my first instinct was to try and solve them, and I think that I was actually able to solve a lot of those issues, but by solving those issues, a lot of other issues started appearing. So one example that I can give you is that at the beginning, I just said to the LLM, to the AI coding agent, hey, go ahead and do this task, and then hopefully it would be able to accomplish the task that I gave it. But soon I started to realize that if I give the AI coding agent much better context and much better tools, then it is going to have a much easier job navigating the code base and seeing exactly what it has to do. With this also started my exploration of some kind of guardrails around these LLMs, where, for example, if the AI coding agent would do some sort of silly mistake inside of the code base, we would have the ability to run automatically a linter inside of our CLI or the IDE, and then those mistakes would be catched and the LLM would be able to course correct by itself. But once I started doing that, I realized that I was mostly doing more work than I was doing previously by just doing what is now apparently known as traditional coding. So this is the first point. The first point is that it became a thing by itself and it took more time than I expected. So this is the first thing that I started realizing that made me think, okay, maybe this is not what it seems to be, because I was spending, I would say, 70% of my time just setting up these tools. Okay, so I apologize for interrupting the video. I'm going to leave a timestamp here where you can skip this entire part and continue watching what you were watching. But I want to announce a brand new learning platform that I'm about to launch, and this is going to give a new life to the Web Dev Fuel idea. And I want to essentially build something, and I already have most of the things already built, everything when it comes to the entire setup. And the thing that I want to build and the idea that I had was a lot of the people that were buying my courses, this includes the HTMX and GoSAS blueprint, had a lot of problems with setting up things from scratch and just knowing how to set up things like Golang, then set up everything related to HTMX, setting up the server, setting up the client inside of their local machines just to learn. Obviously, this is something that is important to learn once we get to the phase of actually deploying the projects. But I think that for a lot of you, especially if you are a beginner, it's important to be able to just do exercises, set up things, and see exactly how it works, whether that's Golang on the server or HTMX for generating the actual templates, and in this case Temple itself. But again, the idea here is that I want to have something that is very much just done for you in a way where we can have no local installation or setup of projects. This will include the client, the server, the databases, and all of the dependencies. You'll get basically your own cloud machine for when you are actually going through a particular course, a particular project, all of the steps and all of the exercises. And this will be sort of a combination between projects and exercises. There's usually this type of learning platform where you are able to just sort of do quick like exercises in Golang, do quick exercises in Python, and then they run your code on some sort of like remote machine, but it never is this entire project where you go from having no web application running to actually having something with a login, with a database, with all those kinds of things, with all of the CRUD actions correctly working, and a nice set up that way. And because of this, I will also be able to provide you with either a web editor or a local editor. This means that you'll get assigned for each particular project that you are going through, and like you can think of them as like tracks or projects or courses. You'll get assigned a unique ID. Doesn't necessarily have to be a UUID, but this is just to sort of demonstrate the idea that you'll get assigned this unique ID and then something like webdevfuel.com repository.git. And by having access to this repository, it means that you can just clone this project inside of your local machine. You'll get the initial setup, for example, with a backend in Golang and like the front end, the templating generation kind of things in Temple with HTMX. And this is just, I'm using this as an example. I plan on releasing a bunch more stuff in the future, like inside of this platform, but you'll get this. And this means that if you are like me and you like to use your own Vim instance, maybe your like VS Code, Cursor, whatever your case might be, you can do that. Or you can just, if you are brand new or if you don't really want to set up things locally that way, you can just use like a web editor like you usually have with those kinds of learning platforms. And also, as a side note, this is going to like make room for a new version of HTMX and Go course. So if you go watch like videos from a couple of years ago, I released the HTMX and Go SaaS blueprint, and to be honest, I was never very happy with the quality of how that turned out to be. So for every customer of that course that bought the course at any point in time, I'm going to give away for free an entire year of this platform. And if you want to join this platform sort of as a Patreon, as a like supporter, as a early like person that is trying just to be able to use this platform, but at the same time also support this initial development of the platform itself, you can also go to webdevfuel.com and go there, sign up with your email, and then I'm going to shoot you an email and maybe even do like a sort of like meeting conversation, Zoom conversation, just to get sort of an idea of what you are looking for. And then I can send you also, if you don't want this kind of like process, just a link for you to subscribe to a yearly plan. And this entire year that you're going to get access to is going to be something that you'll have access to once we get out of this alpha phase, beta phase, whatever the case might be. So once I release this to the public, then on the exact day when I release this to the public, you'll get an entire year. This means that previously to like the release date, you'll get access entirely for free. You pay like initially to get access to it, and then let's say that I take 3 months or 2 months to be able to release this platform, you'll get those 2 months plus the 12 months after that, the entire year after that. And again, if you are watching this video and if you've bought the HTMX Go SaaS blueprint in the past, whatever the price point was, you'll get this exact same deal without having to pay anything. So you don't need to pay anything. You'll essentially get like this exact same structure where the moment that I release the beta access, you'll get 1 year, and previous to that, you'll get access if you want to like help shape out how this will look like. So yeah, this is it. Go to webdevfuel.com and join there, and I'll see you on the other side. Now let's continue with the video. Setting up my prompts, setting up the environments, the guardrails, and only 30% of the time focused on the problems that I was trying to accomplish. And the loop was more or less the following. I would have a problem that the LLM would generate. So let's just write this down. So we would have a problem, and then I would create some kind of resource. So this can be like a better prompt. This can be guardrails. This can be, for example, hooks inside of Claude Code or other kinds of resources. And hopefully this would lead to solutions. The problem is that these problems would occur over and over again, and I was wasting a lot of time just fixing the mistakes that the AI coding agent was doing instead of focusing on the code itself. And I think that here lies most of the reason I see other developers as well just refusing to use AI coding agents as much or at all. I'm not saying that AI coding agents are not good. I'm not saying that they don't have like stuff that they can do which is cool, which can be helpful, which can help us do certain things inside of a code base. But the reality is that if we measure the productivity of AI coding agents against a good developer, and I wouldn't put myself in like a top percentage of developers by any stretch of the imagination, but I think that I'm pretty good at what I do. And I think that if we look at beginners, people who are just starting out, sure, maybe they want to vibe code something, that's a whole different discussion in and of itself. But for people who are actually programmers, developers, I think that we are not indeed more productive, and that's what I felt over these, say, maybe last 4 or 5 months, of which I spent most of the time just doing programming and coding with AI agents. And this leads me to my second point, and that is the productivity that comes from these tools is a lie. I would say is a lie. And I'm not saying that it doesn't exist and that's why it is a lie, but rather that the curve of productivity is a lie. And it makes us think that we are being so much more productive when in fact we are not. So we start at the beginning with a huge productivity gain, and that's because we see that the AI coding agents are able to write a lot of code, produce a lot of lines of code, and it makes us just like feel good. We are indeed more productive. But then we start getting into this phase of just wasting our time, and I'm using that word very carefully because it is indeed wasting our time just trying to fix the LLM. If I just have a better prompt, if I have just like more care with my context engineering, then the LLM is going to be able to do its thing, and it's always my fault, never the AI coding agent. And I think this just leads us into a never-ending cycle of basically trying to fix something that is unfixable. And after this initial productivity gain, then comes the actual reality that hits us, which is productivity loss and time loss. So this is the thing that comes after this huge productivity gain. The reality hits us, and then we start realizing that yes, it is very cool, it's a great technology, it allows us to do a lot of things in certain contexts, but professionally, when writing code, when trying to ship code that actually works, that is not riddled with bugs and is able to be maintained over the long run, I think that the productivity gain goes out the window, maybe even in the other scenarios, but again, a conversation for another day. So this is where I think that we should be able to do a reality check and say, am I actually being more productive, or is it just a trick? And for me, it mostly was just a trick, because when I wanted to build something, I was able to go from 0 to, I wouldn't say necessarily 80%, like most people apparently use that number, and then use like manual coding to close the gap. I would say that I was able to go from 0 to something like 50 or 60%. And then the rest wasn't necessarily even like a number that I was able to assess, because the huge productivity gain that happened during those, let's say, 60 to 70% part of like the progress that I would need to make inside of a project, it wouldn't actually be a reality, because again, if we look here, the productivity is a lie and the huge productivity gain isn't actually real. So I would do something like 60% of progress, and then when I wanted to do this 40% of progress manually, so I'm going to put here AI coding agents and then here manually. At this stage of the project, I thought that I was already at 60%, but then I go to the code base and I see, okay, there's silly bugs. A lot of the code is not actually doing what it says. A lot of the code needs to be refactored. A lot of the code just doesn't work. So what's the point even in doing this? Because at this point, I need to go back to the drawing board, and maybe I'm even doing like 100% of the work instead of actually I'm doing more than 100%, 120% of the work instead of just the 100%. And what I mean by this is that if I waste time here by setting up prompts, setting up guardrails, and setting up hooks, and then I do this 40% manually, but then I need to go back here and review instead of spending 1 month developing a project. Now I've spent like 1 month and 1 week. Now this is obviously just an example, but I think you get the point. So we go here to 40% progress manually, but then we need to spend like 60% or let's just say 20% fixing, if I can type this, fixing mistake. Okay, so then we spend this 20% fixing the AI mistakes, and this is a generous number, but again, and we end up just wasting a lot of our time. So during these 5, like I said, maybe 6 months, I'm not really sure. I think it was somewhere around June that I started playing with it, and then for me to start taking it seriously, it took a couple of months, but more or less this. During this time, I built a lot of different projects. So I built web applications, I built websites, I built CLIs, like developer tooling. I used it to build like the platform for teaching that I have for the students. So I did a lot of things with it. And like I said, I find that during these months that I've been using the AI, I just lost a lot of time trying to set up all of these things around the AI. And then in the end, not actually making almost any progress in the actual projects themselves. So now I'm going to clean up all of this, or rather we can leave this here at the bottom. And I want to talk about the sort of second part, which is my coding skills started becoming worse. So not only was I not able to be more productive, so not only was I wasting time trying to fix the mistakes of the AI, learning a completely different skill, which can be useful in certain circumstances, but here it required me to learn something from scratch, how to prompt, how to do context engineering, how to use these CLIs, all of these things. So not only was I wasting a lot of time doing this, but at the same time, my coding skills started becoming much worse. Again, I'm not a top whatever percent coder. I don't think I'm that great of a coder to begin with, but I saw that the skills that I had were like going down, not by the day but by the week for sure. And if I look back to my ability to code, let's say when I first started using almost full-time AI coding agents to do my work, like I didn't learn anything during this time besides all of these things, again, prompting, guardrails, hooks, all of that kind of stuff. And obviously I got to explore different ideas, different like architectures, different kind of stuff, because I was using the AI to be able to explore those things, but none of them actually stuck in my mind. So at this point, I just started to wonder, okay, does this even make any sense at all? I'm not being more productive. I'm obviously trying to learn something new. It is important to keep up with things, to try to see, okay, is this a useful tool, something that I can like become good at? But it was just not happening. And while there were a lot of benefits, when I actually did a reality check, I realized, okay, no, this is not actually like making me produce more stuff, ship more stuff, and do more things in general as a programmer. And then came this part, which I would consider not necessarily worse, because if I'm able to be productive, that's great, but very bad in the sense that, well, if the AI is not able to do things well, I'm not able to do things well anymore, then who is? So yeah, and at this point, I started to just say, okay, I'm going to go back to just using chat interfaces. So now I'm using mostly Gemini, the Pro plan, I think, or I think I'm on the free one right now. And I have at the moment no AI in my editor, so there's no autocomplete, there's no AI coding agent. I think I haven't touched like Pi, or which was the CLI that I was using previously, for I would say 1 month. And the cool thing is that my skills started to come back and they're improving at a much higher rate. And I think that this is not only because I took a break from coding in general and now I have sort of a brand new like love for this craft, and more than that, just a new motivation to want to do what I'm doing very well, because at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter if I love it, quote unquote, the craft. What matters is if the results that I produce are good. But I think that because I spent so much time not doing these things manually, now that I came back to it, I'm feeling much more like, I don't know, just enthusiastic about just crafting good code, making sure that things are well tested, making sure that the interfaces are correct, that code is good in general, it is maintainable, and it does what it needs to do. So by doing this, I realized that I didn't need at all like AI coding agents in my editor. For the first couple of days, I sort of missed it. I was almost always like, what if I just ask the AI? What if I do this or that? But eventually I just stopped doing that, and now I don't even think about that anymore. I just go to Gemini sometimes when I need to ask a couple of questions, get some ideas. So I still use it in that regard, but I write all of the code and I just do things by myself without needing to rely on the AI as a crutch. It is there, sort of a Google search, more or less, and not to do my work for me. And the last thing that I want to talk about, which I think is the most awesome thing that I realized when I came back to just doing manual coding, traditional coding, which is very funny, by the way, the fact that we now have a word for the thing that we always did until now. But the thing that I realized is that the competition right now is almost none. So if I look back at the first time that I learned React and I learned how to program. So I started programming in 2020, at the end of 2019, start of 2020. And there were a lot of devs. So a lot of people knew React, a lot of people knew Rails, Laravel, Python, whatever. There were a lot of people who actually did this thing, which we call programming, coding, and they were very good at it. Like I said, I'm not like a top developer by any stretch of the imagination. So there were a lot of devs. This meant I had to put in much more effort to get ahead and just be a good programmer, good coder in general. I'm not even talking about employment in any like way. I'm just talking about the ability to produce good code in general and good programs. And now when I came back to it and I'm sort of looking at the landscape, looking at other like content on YouTube, looking at X, Twitter, I'm seeing that now in 2026 there's almost no competition, and that is because of AI. So I would say that today, if 50 different people start learning how to program, even if they're not the quote unquote like vibe coders, people who are just using to build a one-off thing, I would say that a very high percentage of people, something like, I don't know, like 1 in 10, maybe even something higher than that, I'm going to say here made up number. 1 in 10 devs are actually coding, the rest are just prompting. And this means that 1 in 10 devs know what they're doing, and the rest, while they might know, again, keep in mind the diminishing returns of just the coding skills going away, because by just reviewing code, prompting, and asking the AI, you're eventually going to lose all of your skills. And I think this is the thing that also got me pumped a lot, because now I'm trying to sort of come back into this thing from the point of view of, instead of just doing things on the surface level, I'm trying to learn C, trying to learn Rust, I'm trying to learn protocols, I'm trying to just become as good as I can as a programmer or as a coder, because I see that there's just almost no competition at the moment. All the best devs that I used to see on YouTube, now not all of them, but a lot of the devs that I used to see on YouTube, which I admired, I look at the way they thought and they reasoned about their code, I just see that they're not even talking about that anymore. They don't talk about like the nuances of implementation details, of performance, or even about frameworks like React, Python, even if it's not like low level stuff. They just talk about AI, which is, I guess, sort of okay, because it is the thing that they are now passionate about. They want to do whatever the case might be, but there's just not that much people out there. And the same goes also for, obviously, people like you who are watching this video, who probably are not posting any kind of content and just do things behind the scenes. So yeah, and with all of this said, I think I've made most of the points that I wanted to make. So from now on, the amount of videos and content about AI coding agents is going to be next to none, because I decided to give it a try. I decided to see how well it worked out for me, from the point of view of being more productive, doing more things, enjoying my craft. And I think that it was fun. I'm not going to deny that part of it, because it's a new thing. It's something new that I was learning. I was learning how to use these coding agent harnesses, how to interact with them, how to prompt better. So it's a fun thing to learn. I always like to learn new things, so it's definitely fun. But it's not the same as programming, and I think that programming itself is much more fun. Now, I might post in the future something that I've talked about a couple of times on this channel, which is machine learning or AI in general, from the point of view of someone that is actually creating these tools and not using them. But besides this, I'm, like I said, mostly done with AI coding. That's because I still use it on the chat interface. That's why I say that I'm mostly done with it, but I'm not going to use it anymore inside of the editor or inside of like my terminal in like the near future. The only thing that might make me rethink all of this is if I would say if a model comes out with something that is exponentially better, like no hallucinations at all, or perfect code, or at least like perfect instruction following. If I think that you probably know what I mean, but if any kind of coding model comes out that just eliminates all of the problems that we have with the current versions of AI models comes out, then I'm going to obviously give it a try again. But like since I saw how Opus 4.6 was, now GPT 5.4, I think it's where we're at. I haven't even tried it, to be honest, because I've been so focused on just doing Rust, Golang, and Z. I'm trying to learn C, so a lot of these kinds of things. But like the improvement from 5 or what 5.1 to 5.4 is, I would say, in terms of actually being able to be more productive, very negligible. And like the stats that they put out are very much showing a different picture, because it shows that the improvements are very big, but in reality I think that there was a huge gap from obviously from 4 to 5 in terms of programming for GPT, and for Opus I think the number 4 ironically was the biggest jump. But like again, I think I made my point. If only if something like very revolutionary comes out, or maybe if there's like incremental improvements over the next 5 years or 2 years or whatever. But in the very very near future, you're not going to see any kind of content from this channel on AI. So yeah, that's it. And a lot of it is going to be revolving again around the programming in general, now that is not only web development. So yeah, let me know what you think in the comments, if you agree with like the takes that I had here or disagree with them, and I'll see you on the next one.